I'm back. I'm back. Is that better? Another silent sip of my tea. I'm back. Are you guys back? Are you there? Sorry about that. Very, very frustrating. Pay for the fastest broadband you can possibly get, 1 gigabit broadband, and sometimes it just decides it doesn't feel like working at all. Just want to give it a minute while everyone comes back. What? No, don't say still grainy, MZ. Are you serious? Oh. Well, if my local broadband internet provider is having, that's better. It looks better. Should be better. Is that better? It's sped up now. Grainy or not grainy, guys? Should I crack on? Is it okay? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm sorry. This is just. I'm waiting for someone to give me a thumbs up that you can see me and hear me. Okay. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller. Right. Thank you, Nick. Right. Okay. Let's see if I can get back into my stride. Grainier than a bowl of Cheerios. Some of you think it's perfect. Right, I'm going to crack on. What can we do? The show must go on. So, Sunday evening, Sunday stream at 7, relaxed chat with everybody. The theme of this evening's show is, if we are heading, as I suspect and in fact expect and very confidently believe, if we are heading as a country into a very dark period for our economy, and if you are trying to buy your first home or trying to move home or considering whether you should or not, and wondering what a potential negative economic outlook means for you, that's the general topic of this evening's video. Now, I'm going to try and play you this again. There is a very, very wealthy investor and landlord called Rob Moore, 250,000 followers on Instagram, 250,000 followers on YouTube, and he owns 340 apartments in Peterborough. And just let me play the first few seconds of this clip that someone sent me today, and then I will invite you to go and watch the whole thing yourself, because it's really quite interesting to hear what he says. So just let's hear this. Try again.
I believe the mainstream media are lying to you about what's really going on in the housing market. And I'm going to take you around 205 rental units that I personally own with my business partner. It will take me 3 minutes to take you around them all. I own that one, which goes all the way back there. I own this one, which goes back the whole block. So I think I know what's really going on. Now, I believe the mainstream media are perpetuating lies. Did you notice that the Putin interview with...
So go and watch that. It's on Instagram. It's Rob Moore. I haven't put a link below, actually. I should have done. It's Rob Moore Progressive, I think. Rob Moore Progressive. Moore MOORE. And it's a good sort of 15, 20 minutes long, that live stream that he does. And he walks around and shows a whole load of blocks, including one that's just been down valued by £2 million in the last year. Because I've never seen or heard of this guy before, but he's saying exactly what I've been saying. I mean, he thinks it's all deliberate propaganda. I don't actually give the mainstream editors that much credit. I think that they're just copying and pasting press releases from the moving industry, and that's why. And to be fair, there's very little evidence for journalists to confidently argue against the ones providing them with the data. I just wish that they would. I wish that the radio presenters and interviewers and newspaper journalists who write about house prices would interview the publishers of the house price indices as vigorously as Evan Davis interviewed Laura Trott when she got her numbers wrong on a national debt last week. Because if anyone in the mainstream media was to interview people from the property market with that, I mean, every single interview you hear, whether it's on Radio 4 or anywhere else, and they get people on, they're either the chief executive of Foxtons or someone from Halifax or someone from Nationwide. They just say, so tell us what's happening. And they go, blah, 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 blah. Everything's fine. Things are returning to the market. We've seen the bottom, blah, blah. And the interviewers go, oh, great, that's lovely. Okay, on to the next guest. They never question them. They never go, but hang on a second. Could we just challenge that? Could we look at this? Could we, this? And I don't understand why. I don't understand why. Anyway, so that's that chap, Rob Moore. Now, we had just today, another very, very sad announcement for heavy job losses from the Body Shop, who've appointed administrators, and they've got 10,000 direct employees. So sorry, Body Shop set to appoint administrators in the UK. They always do this over the weekend to let people get used to it over the weekend. And they've got 10,000 people with a further 12,000 staff through franchises. There's potentially 22,000 people and then another 3,000 stores in 70 countries. So just, again, you start to add that up to all of the other news we've had about major job losses. And it becomes, I think, impossible to carry on thinking everything's fine. The economy's fine. It's holding up well. We're all going to be fine and nothing's going to go wrong. It's all good. Everything's fine. I just don't buy it at all. And I've gone into my reasons why a million times. I'm not going to go into my reasons why on that. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to assume that the economy is heading down the Kazi as rapidly as it looks like it is. I'm going to ask, what does that mean for you if you're trying to buy, or if you're trying to sell and buy, or if you're trying to sell? Now, if house price, if the economy does tank as hard as I think it's going to tank, then that will hit house prices very hard, because wage growth will turn negative, employment numbers will turn negative, unemployment will rise, vacancies will continue to fall, business failures will continue to rise. All of those inputs into people's income will go down and will drag the housing market down with it for the next couple of years. If I'm right, okay? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everything's absolutely fine. And maybe these tens of thousands of job losses being announced week in, week out are just a blip. It's just a blip. But banks and TV companies and no, it's probably fine. I mean, everything's looking fine. Inflation's coming down, right? So that means everything's going to be fine. God, how far must you have your head in the sand to not see the writing on the wall here? So there's a horrible catch-22. Let's talk about first-time buyers first. There's a horrible catch-22 here, which is that if you are a first-time buyer and house prices are falling as significantly as I think they are in most places, not all, Manchester, first-time buyer properties in Manchester, notable exception. They're holding on very tight because I think there's a lot of competition, people moving from London, downsizers as well. But generally speaking around the country, I think it's mostly coming down. If you're a first-time buyer, you're thinking, well, hang on and I'll wait. Because prices will come down and I'll be able to afford a nice place. And possibly that's true. But when you look at the scale of these job losses, and you realize that a lot of people losing their jobs are not going to be able to get new jobs straight away. Amongst those people will be, as Alex and I said, and by the way, Alex apologizes for not being here this evening. He's been for a walk and he's feeling a little bit peaky after his walk. To be fair to him, it was a 25-kilometer walk, a very, very rapid, brisk walk, but he's passed on this evening, but he will be on Tuesday evening's live stream. Come back to that in a sec. Alex and I said over a year ago, I can remember saying that there are people who are going to be waiting to buy a house until prices have fallen and will then lose their job and they won't see it coming, and then they won't be able to get a mortgage at all, because without a job, you won't get a mortgage. So what do? Get a mortgage now when house prices are still falling, or wait and hope you don't lose your job? Now, I am somebody who, if I were in the situation where I thought, I'm not sure how secure my job is, I would rush out and get a mortgage and buy a place. Even though there would be a risk if I lose my job that I will then lose that house. That's just me. That is not what I'm advising anyone else to do. That's because of who I am, what my risk profile is like, and the way I balance and juggle my life priorities. And the reason, my thinking behind doing that would be, if I lose my job, I will find a way to keep my mortgage payments going. And I would rather be in the situation where I've bought a house because I got my mortgage, then I lose my job. I'd rather be, me personally, would rather be in that situation. Someone's, I've got to hide the comments because they're too distracting. Than I would be saying, I'm going to wait to buy a house till prices have come down, then find that I've lost my job and therefore not be able to get that mortgage and not be in a position to buy one at all. Given those two equally unpleasant scenarios, the least unpleasant will be being in a home that you've bought and wondering how you're going to make ends meet for the mortgage payment, because I think that's a better scenario than the alternative. For me personally, and for people who share my risk profile, risk appetite, life priorities, that kind of stuff. There are people, if you've been saving up a deposit for 10 or 12 or 15 years, thinking, well, if I do that and then I buy a place and then I lose my job and then prices fall and then I can't keep up my mortgage and I have the house repossessed, I'll lose out my deposit. That is another consideration. And maybe you're thinking, I don't want to risk losing my deposit. I would rather hold on to it, ride out a potential job loss whilst renting with my deposit savings as backup, and wait for house prices to come down. And then with my deposit, be able to buy something nicer in a year or two when I've got another job again. You know, these are all the options on the table. And of course, whether it's right for you or not will depend on family situation. You know, have you got kids leaving home, or have you got small kids growing up? Are you expecting kids? Have you got a growing number of kids? Do you have no kids now, but you're hoping to have some? All of these things will weigh one way or the other on that decision. But unless you've got a bulletproof job, then I think, given the indicators we're seeing, you've got to consider, what happens if I lose my job? Maybe your other half has got a job. Maybe both of you got different jobs, and therefore, you think, well, at least one of us will keep on to our job. What happens if you both lose your jobs? I mean, one of the scenarios you might think through is, I mean, this is really, by the way, this is really mortgage broker territory, where if you've got your own trusted mortgage broker, you would talk these scenarios through with them. So I'm not talking this through with anyone personally, and you've got to think this through personally for yourself and talk it through with a broker who knows your specific personal situation. And if you don't have a broker already, one that you trust, because it's got to be one that you trust, because there is another problem right now, which is that there are brokers out there who aren't as trustworthy as other brokers and may give you advice that retrospectively, a couple of years from now, you look back and go, that was terrible advice. Not all brokers give equally good advice. So if you don't have one, you can find my guys here, mhwc.co.uk/mortgage, my two handpicked mortgage brokers that I've picked and been working with because I trust them implicitly to do the right thing by their customers. So it is a conversation, if you're facing this decision, that you should have with your broker that you trust. All right. But if you're a first-time buyer that's enjoyed very stable employment for the last 10, 12, 15 years, it might be really difficult to wrap your head around the prospect of unemployment. But that's happening. It's happening for a lot of people. It's and a growing number of people, and no matter how hard they try to cover it up. So this is what I talk about when I say in the video that on the title is preparing for the worst. I have always said, if you need a home and you found one that you want and you can afford it, buy now, don't overpay. And every single day I'm getting increasing numbers of messages from you guys who have actually followed that advice, and have found somewhere and have bought it even though you have considered the worst case scenario with the economy, with your personal situation. So I'm doubling down on my message, which is that owning a home is better than anything else, especially if times get tough, provided you haven't overstretched yourself and provided you can afford it. But because of the risky economy that we're heading into, it's more important than ever right now that you don't overpay and leave yourself in a worse than necessary situation than you would be in if you had managed to get a really good, healthy discount on the price. And the only way to do that is to be out viewing as many properties as you can. And when the right one comes along, and it only needs one, you'll know it and you'll grab it and you'll be ready with your offer lined up to grab it. And you will snap up that bargain. All right. That's what this whole channel is really about. This channel is about giving my viewers an unfair advantage over people who don't do their research when moving house. This channel is about helping you, whether you are buying or selling, it's about helping you make better choices so that your move happens more smoothly and with less stress and uncertainty than average people's move, the average move for other people does. If ordinary people are going, let's look in the newspaper for advice about our mortgage, let's look in the newspaper for advice on house prices, let's listen to all the mainstream media about advice on the housing market, they are lambs to the slaughter in any market, but especially a difficult market. But you guys watching this channel have obviously got an extra notch of intelligence about you. And if everybody did what I'm suggesting, then it wouldn't work. It's only because you are the minority of people watching this that you are succeeding in selling sooner than other people are selling, and in buying and not overpaying, and in negotiating substantial discounts off the prices that people want for the properties. That's what I'm here for. Negative equity, which is when the amount outstanding on your mortgage balance is larger than the value of your home in the current market, or how much you could sell your home for in the current market, right? So you owe the bank this much, your house is only worth this much if you sell it. The difference there is the negative equity. It's a life ruiner. And I'm going to just do a plug for Tuesday night. I've got a long time channel follower and fan who managed to secure a home and has a story of negative equity at 9 p.m. Tuesday evening. And I'm very happy to announce that Alex will be there as well. I'll be delighted to welcome Madison Fox, who some of you may know. She's got quite a high profile of her own, sharing the story of how, as a kid, her and her three siblings, their parents lost their home and got repossessed in the 2008 downturn because of over leveraging and negative equity. And it was horrific for them. And it's a really inspiring story. And Madison's got a fantastic message for people who fight, because she was made redundant at the beginning of the pandemic, and has turned things around quite well. So if you want to watch that, the link is below to watch that on Tuesday evening. But Tuesday evening, 9 o'clock, we've got that. And I'm hoping to have a couple more live streams this week as well with conveyancing guys, as well as other guests too. So lots more of that coming. Now, do we have any comments on this particular topic? Visible comment says house prices shouldn't determine your purchasing decision. When you talk about house prices as a whole, the national average house prices, I completely agree with that comment. The only thing that matters is the price of the property that you want to buy. Totally right. Urban Achiever makes a comment that I don't fully agree with. Buying a house is overrated. Only buy if you have a secure job and you plan to live for 10 years. I mean, I agree that that, you know, if you've got a secure job and you're going to be there for at least 10 years, then you should definitely just buy now anyway. But buying a house, I wouldn't say is overrated if you want security. I would much rather be I would much rather be struggling to pay a mortgage than struggling to pay rent. That's why I don't think buying a house is overrated. But that's just personal preference. Steve Marriott says, been keeping an eye on some new builds in Derby. One listed in December, 490k. Still on right, we've not sold. Identical property listed this week, 465. Yep. Patricia T says, once repossessed, you can never have a mortgage again. Is that right? I thought you can if your finances are better next time round, but I'd love to know where that comes from. Yeah, Tina Fey says, I'd like to think of myself as a resourceful person, but struggling to think of what jobs and industries won't be upended by AI in the future. So much uncertainty. Absolutely right. And this, I'm going to start doing more videos about this, and I don't know whether I should do them on this channel or on my personal channel, where it's my personal vlog about my own efforts. I think my personal business stories, the successes and failures, and sort of life experiences that I could share in relation to how you can secure your finances in a really uncertain economy. I can't decide whether to do it on this channel or on my personal channel. I'm just thinking about that at the moment. Yeah, Steve says, hi, Patricia, you can get a mortgage after repossession. It may be difficult and expensive, but I've seen someone do it. Nikki Knight says, I wouldn't buy now anyway. I'd wait for the market bottom, and what a mistake investing in a falling asset. So you can't wait. If you've got a life reason that you need to buy, there are lots of people who aren't in a position to wait, or they're in a very stressed situation. They don't want to wait. They want to buy a home now. If you're not under any pressure to buy and you have got time to wait, yeah, maybe you want to wait. But you say wait for the bottom. It is impossible to see and to spot the bottom. There's nowhere that says, hey, it's the bottom today. That doesn't exist. The only way to see the bottom is to be out viewing before everybody else, and to actually be catching the earliest sellers who go, I will cut my price to whatever I need to get it sold. The bottom happens there, and there's no public visibility of it. It happens with the buyers who are ahead of the pack, catching the lowest hanging fruit. And then before you know it, the bottom is passed. Having said that, I'm not expecting prices to bounce much. But Nikki, a home is a home. It's not about how much money you lose or make afterwards, right? In terms of an asset, it may be not an asset on your balance sheet, but having a home is a life asset. Wow. Patricia T says, no, banks have a hidden list of repossessed. Trust me, I worked for a bank once. Wow. Urban Achiever says, always have 6 months emergency funds ready just in case. I mean, it's nice if you can, but I think a lot of people aren't in that position. But I would agree to always have backups if you have them. Tasmanian Devil asks a really, really salient question. If forbearance measures have had a massive effect of slowing the repossession process down, is the effect in a few months' time going to be worse than previously expected, as there would be a backlog? Yes. And I don't think there's any coincidence here that the government has gone to the bank and said, 12 months forbearance, please, everybody. Just so we can get it to just after the election, before the massive wave of repossessions happens, so that Labour can be blamed for that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Nikki Nike again says, with no price indices, how can you know what the true price is in a falling market? By being out there, trying to view and making offers and seeing what's accepted and finding out what properties you're interested in and selling it for how much. Alternatively, when Best Agent's open source house price index is ready, we will have a more up-to-date, accurate house price index than there has been before. Working on that. Hopefully very close to the live version of that coming now. Visible comment says, house prices are dropping because the economy is screwed. Correct. Guys, I mean, it was early 2022 when people's disposable income started to get eviscerated by the massive spike in the cost of living. Do you remember inflation spiking massively? Fuel prices went through the roof. That's when it started. And it was a certainty, because you could just see with this long list of different things affecting people's disposable income, if disposable income was going to get wiped out. There was no way it wasn't going to hit us. Just looking for other questions on this before I go on to one other topic I wanted to discuss. Wow. Tasmanian Devil says, got a viewing tomorrow on a new build with an asking price of 345,000. I was up front with the agent on my 290 to 300,000 budget, and I'm still being allowed to view it. Desperation is setting in now, it seems. Yeah, in some places that's true. Mega Jewel for Currency says, batten down the hatches. My modest cottage is my lifeboat until the sky clears and I look to upsize and relocate to a more gentrified area. Okay. Dan Bedford says, question, could you explain the process of how you hand over your deposit? As a first-time buyer, the thought of handing over my life savings is very scary. How can I protect myself from anything going wrong? It's very simple, because you give the deposit funds to your conveyancer. So you transfer it into the client account of a law firm, and that's protected up the wazoo. So even if the law firm goes bust, their client accounts are protected, and client money is protected against a law firm going bust. So there's really virtually zero risk of your deposit funds disappearing. But I get why. It's a good question. I get why you're concerned about it. Wow. Tony Phoney says, I've sold my house. I'm looking for another. If I was a parent of the couple buying mine, honestly, I would advise them to wait. Really interesting. Dan Booker says, I sold in September 23 and the money's in a savings account and no hurry at all to buy. I'm using the time to do some traveling and work remotely abroad. The longer I wait, the more I'm wondering if the UK is for me. I think a lot of people thinking the same thing. Claire de la Mare says, any advice for buying a house that I just found out has an infringement on it? Almost certain the agent doesn't know. They keep pushing for me for an offer, trying to find out how to lift it. Just ask your conveyancer. I mean, you can make your offer. How do you find out that there's an infringement? I've never heard of an infringement on a property, but your conveyancer will be able to advise you on that. Salterton. Was it 22 or 23, Dan? You said, I think it was September 22. You're saying now. Savkin makes the point, inflation eats up your deposit along with the rent you're paying. What do you think? Is that a good reason to buy, not wait? Yeah, absolutely. It's a factor in the list of all the factors that you've got to consider. Very much a factor. And that's another reason why, if you, let's just say you think that the market for the property you want to buy is going to fall, let's say 20%, worst case scenario, 20% over the next 2 years. Let's say the property is asking price today, or the fair price today, today's market is 200,000. And you think, well, that's going to come off 20%. So it's going to come down to 160,000 2 years from now. But to rent the equivalent property would cost you, I don't know, say £12,000 a year. So to wait would cost you £24,000 in rent. I would then make an offer of 200,000 minus 20%, which is 160,000, plus the 24,000 that will cost in rent. So 184,000 or 180,000. So that's how I'd work out and go, it's 184,000. And you've prepared for a fall down to 160,000 if that does happen. If that makes sense. Jeffrey Tillett, I so wish I could speak to you one, Charlie. I think you mean one-to-one. You can. Anyone can speak to me one-to-one if you want. And there are ways of doing that. There are 3 ways of doing it. One is free, which is if you send me your question on a video, which you're happy for me to share the video. You don't have to reveal your name. You can be anonymous in the video, but I'm currently guaranteeing to answer any question that comes to a video, provided it's not an inappropriate or personal question. Any question about your situation that you got for me, I will answer on video on this channel for free if you send me your question by video. Number 2, you can join the £15 a month Movers Club on buymeacoffee.com/MHWC, where I guarantee to answer all questions that come in there through the Buy Me a Coffee site. Or number 3, you can also book a one-to-one half an hour or 1 hour slot with me in the same place, or on my website, mhwc.co.uk. So Jeffrey, looks like a horrible situation. I so wish I could speak to you one-to-one, Charlie. Ali and my son, 14-year-old, old mum, no mortgage, ex-husband, dad committed suicide recently. Oh, it's awful. Dropped price, as you suggested a week ago in Norfolk. Yeah, Jeffrey, reach out to me. Get in touch if you want. I would love to be able to help. Greasy Slick says, how can you tell the conveyancer's bank account is legit? Ask them yourself. Ask them that question. How do I know that your account is legitimate? So if it's a law firm, it'll be registered with the Law Society. They will be registered and you'll be protected by the Law Society or the SRA against it. Their client account will have a client account. It should say client account details on it. And also, if it wasn't legit, it would become public. I mean, it would be the end of that law firm overnight. So you really, if it is an established, properly registered law firm, you don't need to worry about their client account being legit. Even if they're a dodgy bunch of lawyers, your money is safe in their client account. Leo Lee says, I've got my conveyancer lined up, registered with them, just haven't found a home. Can I transfer deposit funds so I'm really good to go when it's time? You can ask your conveyancers. Some of them don't like holding large sums of money indefinitely, but some of them might. Ask them. It's up to the conveyancer whether they think it's a good idea or not. But it does help speed things up, yes. I'm going to come on to this. I'm just going to share this story very briefly. There's a story in the Sunday Times today. Michael Gove says, if the young can't get housing, they will abandon democracy. Restoring young people's dreams of a roof over their heads will give the Conservative and democracy itself hope of survival, says the Housing Secretary. I think that ship has sailed, Mr. Gove. I think you should have worked that out. Your party should have worked that out a long time ago. And frankly, I think it's a bit fucking rich to say that now because there's an election coming up. Honestly. You think like you couldn't have seen this coming. Barry Crump says, Gen Z are doubly stuffed. 40% of them have a 45k student loan. I mean, I would not be going to student debt if I wanted to have any chance of buying a house and I had the choice of going to university or going straight into work. Going to university, 3 years of your life, and you come out the other end with large debt. And that's your starting point for saving up for a home of your own one day. Or don't go to university, start working, even if it's lower pay to start with. Start working, start earning, start getting actual experience that will make you that much more valuable an employee, because I can assure you someone with 3 years full-time work experience in a given sector is more employable, except for in very specific professions, than someone who comes out with a degree. My view as an employer of 30 years, that's my view. I've been through so many thousands of CVs over the years. I always hire on attitude, not qualifications, because qualifications can be added, attitude can't. Sorry, guys, just going through all your questions here. Imdadul Hack, I hope I got that pronunciation right, says, if we go into recession, where do you see base rates settling at? Housing Stig, Alex Groundwater, has answered this question and said that they may initially come down quite low to around 3%, the Bank of England base rate, and then settle at between 3.75 and 4.25. So around 4% is where he expects them to settle. And I defer to Alex on that, and I would agree. I would agree. But whether or not, when they might be able to settle is another story. How far away that is. But in terms of, they're not going to come from where they are now. They're not going to settle unless they settle actually at 5.25% for a while. I suspect we have a few years of real uncertainty in the economy and with interest rates. Yachek D says, when will people wake up to what's happening in the housing market? When it's too late. Because majority of people just look at news headlines, don't question them at all. And by the time the news headlines report what's happened, it'll be well after the event and it'll be too late. Puddle says, I've been looking at new builds, being encouraged to use their smooth move scheme. I don't know what that is. Can you tell us what the smooth move scheme is? But Puddle goes on to ask, am I right to feel that it's more for their benefit than ours? Generally speaking, everything is more for their benefit than for yours. Yes. Tasmanian Devil says, if good quality new builds are hard to come by nowadays, how many do you think will still be available after the shit has hit the fan? More or less, all will be gone by the time the boomers get them. Listen, you've got to remember that boomers have started dying out. It is their time, unfortunately, on average. No hard feelings to any boomers watching this. May you live long and prosper. Actually, if you're a boomer, you've already done the prospering part, and you've already lived quite long. May you live a bit longer. I didn't think that through, did I? Boomers have lived long and prospered, generally speaking. But I actually think that because of the generational effect of boomers' timeline, the baby boomers' timeline, and because detached houses have already been recognized as falling in price faster than any other property type, I suspect that a lot of houses, nice detached houses that have been out of price reach for some time, are actually going to start coming into price reach in the next few years. So new builds or not. Yachek says, Charlie, when do you expect 3-bed terraced houses in London to fall? Right. Well, first of all, London has got 30-something sub-markets within it. All the boroughs are doing different things, so I can't give it a general London answer. Go and look at Rightmove's most previous thing. It breaks down every London borough's price move in the last 3 months in the last year. It doesn't break it down by house price type. Sorry, house property type. But what I can tell you is that, unfortunately, 3-bed terraced houses have been outperforming flats and detached houses. Terraced and semis are the ones that are, generally speaking, holding up better on price than flats and detached houses. So when do I expect them to fall? It depends what borough you're in. But I just don't see anywhere in the country escaping falls by the time we get to the end of 2025. Tina Fey says, I always transfer £1 over to any account before a big amount. That's a great idea and tip, and I've seen that done, and I agree with you. Good idea. Where do you think Urban Achiever says, where do you think the average prices will settle? Nationwide have it at 257. There's no such thing. If there was such a thing as the average, I know what you're asking. Where do I think the house price indices say the price will settle? Well, none of them even agree on what the average house price is. They're all different anyway, which just goes to prove my point. But is it fair to answer this question by saying I think that prices, house prices, not averages are so unhelpful, but house prices are going to settle on average between 15 and 50% off their highs. That's where I think they're going to settle. It'll depend on whether it is a flat, a terrace house, a semi, or a detached. It'll depend on whether it's high end of the market or low end of the market. It'll depend on whether it's north or south. Basically, the housing market has got 3 dimensions to it: property type, property location, and price band, low, middle, or high. Okay, it's literally a 3-dimensional house market, and so there are 9 different market potentials within it, and they all behave differently. I'm trying to catch up with all the comments as fast as I can. DR says, Charlie, FYI, UK inflation statistics and GDP print due this week, likely to show rising inflation and official recession. Not good news for lending and housing market. If it does do that, I've read in a few places that they're expecting this. If it does show that inflation has risen for the 2nd month in a row, and it shows that we've officially gone into recession, 2nd quarter of negative growth, it might be enough to spook the flock. And we've already had Rightmove saying they've seen a record number. And they seem to be saying an all-time record for valuation requests. People asking for agents to come round and appraise their house for putting it on the market. So that is a strong leading indicator that there is a very large increase in the number of properties coming to the market. So yeah, I mean, if they do show official recession, I mean, the one thing the mainstream media will always do is do whatever gets the most clicks. So if it's officially in recession, you can just guarantee the headline's going to be, "We're in recession. We are definitely in recession. Now we're in recession, and inflation's going up. Oh, stagflation." You'll see lots of alarmist headlines because it gets the clicks. It just does, and that might panic the flock. The flock of people who just react to headlines, I mean. Change is coming says, only go to university if you are doing a law, medical, science, or IT degree. Everything else is pointless. Yes, or unless you're absolutely stinking rich and you can afford to just go to university for 3 years of shits and giggles. That's another reason to go. I chose not to. I went to the city instead of university. I could have gone to university, but I chose not to. I'd had the enjoyment of education had just been beaten out of me by school. I wasn't interested in it. Yeah, I would agree. And also, I would be choosing a profession which you can earn money at no matter what happens in the recession. That's what I'd be doing. Wow, XR2828 says, I'm still paying off student loans at a rate that barely pays the interest, and I'm on over 40K. It will never be paid off in full. Wow. Tasmanian Devil says, Gove, young people will look at leaving the country. Australia will have big jobs in green energy in the coming years, says the Tasmanian Devil, slightly biased there. Yeah, but you might be right about Australia. I spent a lot of time in Aussie. I was like my second home for about 10 years in Sydney, and it is a wonderful place. I missed England, to be honest, but it was a lot of fun to go to for a while. Jeffrey Tillett, don't give me your phone number here, Jeffrey. Listen, just Google me and find me on anywhere that you can send me a private message. It could be X, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram. You'll find me and send me a private message there. But you need to go to my website, mhwc.co.uk. I can't start. Yeah, or just send. Yeah, you'll find a way. Send me your questions. And put your phone number in there, and if we'll see. Liam Jennings says, I know folk are overpaying still. They are listening to an estate agent instead of looking at everything I send to them. Yeah. There are lots and lots of people who are definitely overpaying. And you know why? Because it's me against an entire industry saying that everything's fine. The mortgage industry is saying everything's fine. The estate agency is saying everything's fine. The government says everything's fine. The official figures say everything's fine. And so, if you are an ordinary person, that's a pretty compelling narrative that everything must be fine. And you're not going to lose your job, and there's not going to be a recession. And so just go ahead and sign your life up to a very high-priced home and lots of debt. It's very sad. It's very sad. Greasy Slick says, will there be a spring bounce? I'm seeing houses listed at 20-25% increase in asking prices. No, that's silly. There's no way that you've got houses going on at 20-25% higher asking prices than they were in December. That doesn't make any sense. That's just nonsense. Come on. Show me proof of that. That's rubbish. I mean, if you show me proof of that, I will colour myself shocked. But that doesn't make any sense. Kylo Hawk says, if you want to offer but are concerned about what you think a potential issue with the penetrating damp, should you factor that into your offer or say subject to survey and negotiate later? Both. You factor it into your offer price, because if it's known about, then you should. It doesn't make any sense not to. And also say that the offer is subject to survey, because you want to see the survey should show you the full extent of the damage. Savkin says, mortgage rates uptick. Does it mean banks no longer struggling to lend and have buyers coming? No, that's not what it means at all. It's to do with the cost of the money that they're borrowing. The lenders are having a tough time of it because the volumes are down so much. And Bank of England confirmed that total net mortgage lending is at the lowest since records began. The year-on-year growth in net mortgage lending for the first time ever is now flat. There's been zero growth in it. That's bad news if you're a lender, because it is a lending Ponzi. And if you don't keep lending and because a lot of banks, the money that they lend you is created like, here you are. It didn't exist, and they just literally magic it into existence. Not all lenders do. Some mortgage lenders actually lend pre-existing money that's coming from funds where it's being invested. And those lenders are not magicking money into existence to keep on pumping the money supply system. But a lot of mortgage lenders, literally the banks, they are able to just type it in the keyboard and ta-da, as if by magic, there's another £500,000. And when they can't keep doing that, it's a problem. Bob Nugnug says, hi, Charlie. I think you're very kind with your time. Just saying thank you very much. That's very appreciated, but it is my absolute pleasure to do this. Urban Achiever says, boomers are giving all their money to care homes. Yeah. Puddle says, Smooth Move is an assisted move scheme where it basically sounds like they sell your house for you and get to accept the price in order to get a quick sale. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to be giving you a better price. It's like a second-hand car dealer giving you a trade-in price for the car you're trading in. They don't give you the price that you can get from on the open market. They give you less. You tend to pay for that. And if they do give you what sounds like a good price, it's because they're making on the other end on the price that they're charging you for the house they're selling. Country Guy has a message where it's actually pointing at his profile and says, boomer. Hello, Country Guy. It's very uncomfortable talking to people who are boomers, and then also saying, and boomers are of course coming to the end of their natural. This is me talking to you. You're an individual person watching this video, and you're a boomer. Then you hear me talking about a large group of people, and you're all going to die, and we're all going to die. That's the point. It's just a question of when, isn't it? Everyone. Newsflash, we're all going to die. No one gets out alive, so make the most of it while you're here. Nick Woodward, I had an email from Europe this week saying house prices are rising. Bullshit. You're right. They'll just be quoting Halifax. That's how they'll get away with that, but unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievably desperate. Property Ladder says, any thoughts on so-called fleasehold properties on the new estates? i.e. uncapped, unregulated management charges in the freehold. Uncapped, unregulated management charges, just walk away. But otherwise, just if you found a house that you like, but you're worried about the terms of the lease, just check out with your conveyancer. And the question to ask them is, what is my maximum liability under the terms of this lease? Nikki Knight says, Boomer, alive and well here. Thanks. And still looking to move up. Excellent. By the way, I have this ridiculous, but nevertheless, for anyone who thinks I'm not an optimist, right? I'm about to prove you wrong. I am aiming to make it to 120 years old. I'm aiming to work to 90 and then spend 30 years sitting back and watching what happens and unfold. I reckon if I can work to 90, I will have earned 30 years of putting my feet up and watching what happens. And if I can get on what is now actually being mooted as real possibility of tourism to the moon in that period, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be one of the first. It'll be fantastic. Always want to do that. Just a Politics Babe on X says, first time by dealing with Dexter's estate agency. My condolences. Sorry. Dexter's used to be a client of mine and they didn't treat their suppliers very well. And also Dexter's, I happen to know, are one of the worst at overvaluing. Hey, Dexter's, if you're watching this, sue me. Prove me wrong when I said that you guys are one of the worst at overvaluing. Some of your sub-brands have held on to their older values, but Dexter's as a group, come on, guys. Don't overvalue so badly and then lock people into long-style agency contracts. It's just not a nice thing to do. And I know that some of you have been there a very long time, back in the day when you were clients of mine. Some of you are outstanding guys. And I've had some of my clients, some of my estate agency clients who sold out to Dexter's. Oh. I remember, I'll share this story very briefly. One of my clients sold out to Dexter's and I said, look, that's your choice and that's your problem. They are your problem. They're not my problem. Sure enough, a few weeks later, he came to me and said, look, Dexter's want me to do this, that, and the other. And I said, I warned you. I said, I'm sorry. I will do what you want. If that's a problem, that's your problem, not my problem. I don't want to have anything to do with what Dexter's want. They're not reasonable. I have to put a caveat in here. Some of the staff at Dexter's are fantastic and outstanding, and some of the staff in some of the offices will get your house sold and will give you good service. I cannot generalize about the entire company as a whole, but what I do know is that generally speaking, as a whole, they are amongst the worst overvaluers. Sorry, guys, it's true. Oh, some great questions. I haven't got time for all of it. Jill Hayes says, Gen X here, the best. Yeah, me too. I'm with you there. Hubby is a boomer. Hope he has a good few years left in him. So do I. I hope he does too. A link to the Rob Moore video. Hey, let me put the link. I'll put it in the live chat here. Here is a link to the Rob Moore video in the live chat. There you are. That's the bottom. What do you think of this? Oh God, am I still blurry? Has this whole video been blurry? Yeah, AJ says, personally, I think IT degrees don't require university anymore. Apprenticeships are more effective for the economy and personal growth. Yeah, I'd agree with that. 3 years with a job as a junior developer, coder, software engineer will probably get you further. It may not be as fun as university, but it will get you further along the line. Homes Echo says homes in Sydney are more expensive than London. There were some fantastic places in Sydney, but the market there, I was out there when the market there was going crazy and accelerating and overtaking London about 12, 15 years ago. Sorry, guys, long pauses here while I look at the questions. Echo again. Question: do you think university degrees could be made shorter so that people can start contributing to the economy sooner and rack up smaller debts? If you are someone who has the mental capacity to actually begin and complete a degree, you are almost certainly more than capable of learning whatever you want yourself using this extraordinary resource called the internet. I don't see university as a good value use of time or money. A lot of fun, definitely. Lifelong friendships made and lifelong experiences formed and all that kind of stuff. But from a purely educational point of view, unless it's because you want to go into medicine or science or something where you really need it, that's different. But with almost anything else, you don't need to go to uni. You can teach yourself anything. Looking for questions. Yeah, Urban Achiever says there is now a recession in the jobs market. Number of new postings decreasing and applicant numbers shooting up. That is true. Andrew Taylor says, anyone here doing van/motorhome life? I know I have a few followers who do that. I don't know if they're here tonight, but they have told me that in the past. Ems says, question: I work from home. Am I helping or hindering the viewing by being present when the EA shows potential buyers around? That's an excellent question from a seller. And the answer is, I would make yourself scarce during the viewing. So just pop out for a cup of tea, just, give them space, walk the dog, pop out for a cup, whatever it means. But just don't be in the house. Step outside for just 10, 15 minutes or so. But be around before they leave in case they've got any questions that you can answer that the estate agent can't. But I would also ask the estate agent that question and ask them, would you prefer that I'm available for questions or would you prefer I'm not around? Because the estate agent will know the best answer to that question based on your property, on you and the buyers, that kind of stuff. Okay, good question there. But generally speaking, I would say don't be around. Buyers are much more comfortable nosing around someone's house. It's quite uncomfortable to look around someone's house when they're in it. It's sort of their personal space. It's better for buyers if the seller is not there. Personally, that's my view. There are exceptions occasionally, but generally speaking, I think it's better. But make yourself available for questions if the estate agent says it helps. Greasy Slick, you're still not telling me where that is. My town is not somewhere I can refer to as being north or south or east or west or university. Like, name the place. Do you think okay, just a politics babe again on X asks the question. First time buyer, if I accept an offer, so you mean if you have an offer accepted but you think it's worth less, can you say subject to survey? I mean, if you think it's worth less, don't offer that much in the first place. But if you're saying if you change your mind because of the amount of time that's passed, you don't need to explain your reasons. You can change your offer whenever you want. You may well lose the deal, but you don't need anyone's permission. You don't need a justification. You don't need anything. You simply say, I'm no longer comfortable with the price that I offered. My new offer is now this. I understand it may not be acceptable to you, in which case I will withdraw. But if you're happy to proceed at my new price, I did a video on how to renegotiate. Look it up, how to renegotiate. Okay. But don't do the awful cliche thing of making an offer that you know you're going to reduce later and just say, oh, because of the survey. It's just everyone, it's like everyone knows when they're being lied to. And it kind of undermines and taints the transparency in the transactions. Just be honest, be open. Don't offer more than you think it's worth. Don't offer more and then ship them later, like intentionally. It's just not the best way of doing it. Capri says, Charlie, stop digging. I didn't know I was digging. What am I digging? Tasmanian Devil says, banks will keep lending until the game is up and the party's over. They're motivated by greed. It's actually a more systemic thing than that. It's not someone deciding whether we'll lend or not. It's just policies and systems and money flow. It's not something that it's that easy to do. I mean, they just have to go along with the way the market is and what their business is doing. Urban Achiever says, millennials with degrees rule, okay? Kylo Hawk says, when you talk about Manchester being resilient, do you mean prices seem flat or rising? Manchester itself has got areas within it which some are doing better than others. Some areas I think are actually rising, and some aren't. I don't know detail, but what I mean is, as a city, generally it is out. So, for example, London prices are falling much further than Manchester prices. That's what I mean by that. But within Manchester, there will be regional variations and also variations on the property type and variations on the budget level. So even in Manchester, you've got that three-dimensional housing market I was talking about. Okay, the location within Manchester, because south is different from north because of access to trains to London, that kind of thing. Property type, is it a house or is it a flat? Is it terraced or semi? So the property type is the second one. And number three, are you bottom, middle, or top end of the budget for that type of property? They're all different. Toilet roll holder says, we have to play with the cards we are dealt. I agree with that. Blame successive corrupt governments, not boomers. Boomers' lives matter. That is funny. Equity release schemes are pretty much, there's not a lot of extra release happening now. Right, I'm going to try and catch up with the comments. You guys are commenting much faster than I can actually keep up. Savkin says, you're saying semis are holding better. Does that mean we can get a detached house for the price of a semi? In some places, that wouldn't surprise me at all, because the running costs of a detached house are significantly higher, all else being equal, to a semi-detached house. So yeah, the running costs of a property have suddenly become a much larger proportion of the total outgoings. Whether you're renting or paying a mortgage, the running costs of council tax, heating bills, all those other things are now much bigger. So buyers have become much more sensitive to overall running costs of a house, which is why a lot of switched on boomers downsized last year and got out of those expensive drafty places that cost a fortune to heat, and are now moved into brand new places like this one, which is incredibly energy efficient. Mega Jewel for Currency says, to the moon, that ship sailed in Corn about 10 years ago. No, they're expecting to land an unmanned one on the moon and then a manned mission to the moon possibly next year, I think. That's coming back again. Right, I'm just going to scroll through. If it doesn't say question, I'm not going to look at it, right? If it doesn't say question at the beginning, I'm scrolling straight past everything. Oh, wait. Sorry. Comment number 3 from Just Politics Babe on X. Degrees are costly. I have 80k debt and will never pay it off. I earn just 50k. Yeah. It's just like a millstone around your neck, isn't it? Annie Anonymous, I'm sorry, guys. I can never remember. There's so many of you. I don't remember where you all are. So when you talk about your market, again, I need to know north, south, big town, city, small. Without the context, I cannot comment. And you're saying the market. And is it flats? Is it houses? Is it top end? Is it lower end? Is it city? Is it town? Is it country? Is it all of those things I need to know? Is it a university town? Because I can't comment on what's happening in your local market. I don't know what's happening in your local. I don't know what the jobs market's like there. I don't know what the economy is like there. But in terms of your question about is there a spring bounce? There will be places where there might be a spring bounce, but it's not the spring yet. As I said, Rightmove has seen a huge increase in stock coming to market. And if next week they do say inflation's going up for the second month in a row and we're now in recession, I think the only thing that's going to be bouncing is the number of properties coming onto the market. But there will be some areas, and Annie, it might be your area, where actually it's one of those places that outperforms it. I don't know. I can't tell you. That's interesting. Stealthful says, I'm a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and I would say a university degree is a must if you want to work for a Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google. What's the other A? Can't remember. And AI won't disrupt any hiring in the near future. Outsourcing is a bigger issue. Yeah, interesting. Barry Crump has shared with us, I was buggered at university. Oh, I don't know if you mean that as a good thing or a bad thing, Barry, but thanks for letting us know. Nick Woodward says, seriously considering van life, my cat and me driving into the sunset. Yeah. Questions. Okay, here we are. CY123 says, when buying a new build, the developer recommends their solicitor and says it will be cheaper as they've already done several houses in the estate. Worth it or find your own? That's a really good question. I would not trust a developer's own solicitor. That may not be fair. They might be perfectly trustworthy, but I would rather, because they really are. They're working together. The developer gives that solicitor a lot of work, and that solicitor will therefore be tempted to paper over any cracks that might hold it up, because actually so much of their work comes from the developer. So I would go with your own solicitor, your own conveyancer, and not use developers generally. And also the same with don't use agents unless you really trust the agent. No, Silvio, I'm sorry, Silvio Padre, I got your name pronounced wrong, I'm sure. I don't agree with this. Gary's Economics is explaining very strong economic arguments why house prices will not drop. No, Gary has very strong economics arguments for most things, but his argument for why house prices won't drop is not an economic argument at all. His whole argument is based on the fact that rich people will buy houses because they can. And where I disagree with him, this is the only thing I disagree with him on almost everything else he says, is that let's just define rich people as people who've got more money than they're ever going to need. I don't mean people who are just quite well off and earning lots of money. That is not what I think he means by rich. He defines rich people as people who've got huge amounts of assets that they buy and sell to each other. Okay? Those kind of very rich people do not want hassle. I know so many. I've grown up around so many very rich people. And the one thing they do not want is hassle. And the one thing that is riddled with hassle from dusk until dawn is residential property. It is an illiquid, risky, pain in the bum, expensive to maintain, nightmare asset that you cannot jump into and jump out of with a transaction on your smartphone. And for that reason, I agree with Gary saying that the rich, the people who are just shuffling assets around, will continue to pump asset prices up by buying and selling them to each other with all this excess money that they've got, except for houses. Because houses are just a pain. They might go into very large funds or trusts that are buying brand new developments. And again, they can get in and out very easily. But in terms of actually purchasing individual properties, buying and selling, no. They do that at the very high end. I had an estate agency client who sells properties in the tens of millions all day, every day. And so there are individuals who will buy a 10 million or a 15 or a 20 million pound place in London to put their money there for a while. And then when they want to sell it, they'll sell it within a week like that. That's not going to affect house prices. The people who do that won't affect house prices. The people with tens of millions of pounds will not be buying 250 grand semis. They're just not going to. And so they're not going to affect house prices. I don't agree with Gary on that particular point. And also, there's no economic argument. He's making a heuristics assumption on behavior of very rich people, which I disagree with. Yang Naifen, I'm sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. I'm living in Hong Kong, and there is a similar thing going up the housing market here, and many are already in negative equity. Okay, negative activity. All right. Okay, Stealthful says, in coding, you don't realize you need the degree until you deal with complex problems in the real world. So I have been employing software coders since I employed my first one in 1998. So what's that? 26 years I've been employing coders. And honestly, some of the most talented ones I've ever worked with didn't go to university. I just that's just my experience anyway. I've got to stop this. My God, we're going for over an hour. Amir says, hi Charlie, I'm first time here to your channel. I'm looking to offer 20% under for a £1 million asking price detached house in southeast London, 1 month on market. Should I wait a while or shoot my shot now? Why wait? If you like the house and if no one else is offering and you offer 800,000 and you get it, and will that make you happy? Why would you wait? Go for it now. Go for it. And welcome to the channel, by the way. Okay, guys. Do you think? Nikki Knight says, was it better when building societies supplied the mortgages from savings, that is real money, and the banks dealt with everything else? I feel it was. Yeah, I think it was. I agree. Conor O'Hagan says, can you see the Bank of England raising rates? I can see it. I'm not expecting it, but the possibility is absolutely there. I'm not, let me be very, very clear. I'm not forecasting or expecting or predicting the Bank of England to raise interest rates. But what I'm saying is there are too many uncertainties out there, and events could unfold in the coming months that may see the Bank of England having to put rates back up again. I can absolutely see that as a potential scenario. Not expecting it currently. Still currently expecting rates to just stay where they are for a long time, but most of this year probably is my. Allegra86 says, would you keep offering on a house where the seller is not motivated? Listed on November for 750, reduced in December to 725, spoke to agent, no offers, and not willing to reduce. Shall I keep trying? Yeah, yes, absolutely, because it costs you nothing to keep trying. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you haven't found anything else you want and you want that house, why not keep trying? Absolutely. Yes, I have seen the Body Shop announcement. I actually shared it on the beginning of this video. The Body Shop massive job that's going to administration. Tina Fey says, I've never intended to pay off my student debt. Gets wiped after 20 years anyway. Controversial. Pyme26 says, Charlie, is it silly to offer 50% less asking price on a bank repossession for cash? It depends on whether there are any other offers or not and what the asking price is. But on that particular point about bank repossession, so banks have a legal obligation to obtain the best price available, because whatever they obtain for that house will be offset against the remaining debt from their borrower that they've evicted. I've actually been in a courtroom and I've heard the judge say to a bank's lawyers, may we remind you of your obligation to make certain that you achieve the best possible price when selling that property. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, if yours is the best offer, the bank will just take your offer if that's the best one. If they think that they're likely to get better by waiting, that they might. But if yours is the only offer and it's cash, you've got nothing to, and also the thing about making silly offers on bank properties is that no one at the bank is going to be offended. So you won't have to wait for people to get over their offense. Ems, who's a seller, asks a really good question. I'm using the same estate agent to sell my property, and they know I am hoping to buy a property on their books. I thought this would motivate the estate agent to sales in one. Is this a mistake? No, not. It's the only mistake you might have made. It won't be anything to do with that decision. It'll be a mistake if the agent isn't very good. That might be a mistake that you've made. I don't know, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the same estate agent to sell and to buy from. In fact, there are advantages to doing that if the estate agent is good. If they're not, then you have another problem altogether anyway. Summer Junk says, Gary's talking shit. Rich people aren't going to buy regular houses. I agree. Chris Dickinson says, very rich people keep their money offshore. Property is not offshore. It is offshore. London properties are offshore if you're an overseas or a foreign buyer. Don't forget. And I have seen those transactions happening at close quarters. Right, guys, I can't keep up. I'm just going to declare myself beaten by the number of questions and comments. Feeks on X, who's a seller, says, this is a great question. Is there any reason I can't pay for a home survey on my own home to present to buyers? There's no reason that you can't do that. Although buyers will occasionally be concerned that maybe because you paid for it, the surveyor might be hiding stuff. What I would recommend you do is buy a search pack, because that's something that you can have no influence over. The search pack will come with the standard results no matter who buys it. By having a property search pack already provided for your buyers, you can speed up the process remarkably, and it shows how serious you are as a seller. So search pack's also a lot less than a survey. Get yourself a search pack. And you can get them from me, by the way. That's not why I'm saying this. I genuinely, of course, Charlie, of course it's not why you're saying it, but mhwc.co.uk/property-pack, and you can get yourself a search pack, which any conveyancer can use and which your buyer can use if they do it fast enough. You've got to exchange within 3 months of the search pack being bought, and they've got to complete within 6 months. But you can do that. Amir Sheikh, another question. When offering 20% under asking price, do I do the first and final offer approach or do the two-step? It depends if you fancy yourself as a negotiator, because the whole point of the first and final offer that I recommend in my first time buyer offer email template is that you are preventing yourself from being engaged in a game that the estate agents are more experienced at playing than you are, which is, I'm not getting into a negotiation. That's my price. It's take it or leave it. If you don't accept that price, I walk. There is no negotiation. They can't tie you into this, that, and the other. And it's so if you decide to go with the first offer and expecting to go up, you will probably end up being talked into and FOMO'd into paying more than you otherwise might have. But, FOMO is a very compelling thing. FOMO leads to YOLO. You YOLO yourself into overpaying. Be careful. That's why I always recommend the first and final offer if you're buying a home. I'm finishing with this. 30% off. Tell them, Charlie. So tell them Charlie sent you and beat your chest. 30% below asking. Brilliant. Guys, thank you very, very much. It's been fantastic. Thank you for making this a really good Sunday evening live stream. I hope you've enjoyed it. And give me feedback, please, in the comments below about the format. The Sunday evening at 7 as just a chilled weekly catch-up and just a Q&A session. Judging by the hour and 20 minutes we've been going and the fact there are still nearly 500 of you there, I'm taking that as a good sign. Thank you, guys. See you on the next one. Tuesday evening, 9 o'clock. Don't miss that. That's going to be because my first channel viewer who's coming on the channel as a guest to tell their story about negative equity and how they bought a home, all right, after losing their job. So I hope you will see me and Stig, Alex, for that Tuesday evening, 9 o'clock. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.